Iceland's Fridge by Pierrot of Words, and I'm saying the author's name this time because I have permission from them to do this, which is great. Let's get started, shall we? His fingers brushed the white door lightly, sensually. Was it creepy to love this man-made box so? He couldn't think so. If a man could waver another man's heart, so could this thing waver his. Who cared if it was creepy? It could just be between him and the fridge. He moaned at the sucking noise the door made as it opened away from the frame. The chill swept over his already bare skin. That was his lover touching him. The contained fish aroma wafted around him. That was his lover's smell. It was sweeter than any woman or man he'd known. He gently touched the butter in the dish, pushing his fingers into it, coating them as he slowly melted it with his body heat. When his fingers were all sticky with the beautiful yellow liquid dripping down his hand, he stroked his length lovingly. His hand glided over smoothly, making him moan. He wanted more. He grabbed a pack of ice and split some out. Picking up a particularly big one, he licked each side, making the cube just slick enough. He fell to his knees and nuzzled the lower drawer with his forehead. Reaching between his legs, he found where his little ice cube was going, and pushed it in. It was so much colder than the heat he was giving off compared to his fingers. He leaned forward, dragging his head further and further down the fridge. The ice slid down his passageway, leaving a chill as it went. Iceland cried out as the cube reached so deep it was rubbing against his sweet spot. He wished the fridge had a name so he could scream it through the roof. He clenched the cube in place so he could reach one more into the open fridge. He pulled out the first thing his fingers blindly touched, which turned out to be a tomato. He immediately bit down on it, making the juice squeeze out over his face and chest, and even in his light-colored hair. Iceland wiped some of it over his chest, ending with a thumb over his budded nipple. Shit. He pinched and played while he bent over again, letting the almost melted ice rub and melt on his nerves. The tomato fell from his mouth. He took his hand, covered in water and tomato juice, and pumped his buttery erection furiously. Ew. His breathing grew fast and his heart beat. He thought about the fridge. Oh, how he loved the fridge. He screamed out in euphoria and shot out all over the fridge's lower door. Leaning against it, he stroked it with his fingers, leaving a trail of red and yellow. He closed the door and kissed the handle as that sucking noise was made, telling him back that the fridge loved him too. He fell asleep, whispering to the inanimate object. Chapter 2. Sweeten's Fridge. Crack Epilogue. Iceland came into the kitchen for breakfast the next day. He blushed when he saw his fridge sitting in the usual place. Wait. This whole time it was Sweeten's fridge? I thought it was his fridge. I didn't read this carefully enough last time, I guess. Shit, he thought. I forgot he'd be here. What is he gonna do? Walk away? Sorry. He curtly took some cereal from the cupboard and poured it in a bowl. Then he realized he needed milk. He ate it dry, and his chew slow and nervous. So, having a good morning? The fridge hummed in reply. Good, he said quietly. He finished his disgusting cereal and sat there quietly staring at the bowl. At last, he couldn't hold it anymore. I think we should be just friends, he said firmly. The fridge was quiet. I know we did that, but I want us to stay the way we were. The fridge was quiet. Are you okay? He panicked. Some water leaked out of the door. Iceland almost thought he had made it cry, but he wasn't that stupid. He rushed over to it, yelling, "What's wrong with that?" over and over. His shaking hand was covered in the water. He fell to his knees and beat on the door furiously. "It's not fair! Why couldn't it have been me?" he screamed until his wrist was caught and he spun around. There stood Sweden, staring ominously. "Its plug just came loose," he grunted. what are you doing to my fridge? So, was it his fridge? He did the first chapter, and then he had been doing it to Sweeten's fridge before? Did he just cheat on Sweeten's fridge? So many questions. Chapter 3, Iceland is a clumsy lover. Polar opposites, heat and cold, contained in breaths which intermingled with the hot one, wrapped and compacted, and ultimately dispersed into the chiller which sought its distribution, and his, Iceland's, fingers grew number and number as time went on, and the heat stored in his gut emptied, and he was filtered away without recompense. Inside there was only losing and not gaining, heat and therefore motion. Iceland didn't even see the darkness as his lids had frozen shut. And why, he had to wonder. Why was he here? How had everything gone so wrong? His cold companion was now a bunny boiler, only the bunny was being frozen, and it wasn't a bunny, but himself, locked within a refrigerator, only held by suction, but apparently by a stronger force that he had the strength to reckon with. But then, light. A crack and a blast, the door opening up to a stunned pair of Nords clambering over his stiff blue body as it toppled out into them. A rasher of bacon was glued with ice to his rump, but more startlingly, he wasn't wearing anything over it, nor over any other part of him. "Damn it, Iceland, we told you you could get help for this." The poor man's teeth chattered in response.